And welcome to this May 13, 2024 Committee of the Whole meeting of the Village of Bluff Village Board of Trustee. Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes. Member Cole?
Here.
Member Fisher?
Here.
Member Freed?
Here.
Member...
Robin. Here.
Member Ryder?
Here.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is the non-agenda items and visitors for public comments. The Committee of the Whole allocates 15 minutes during this item for those individuals who would like the opportunity to address the Committee of the Whole on any matter not listed on the agenda. Each person addressing the Committee of the Whole is asked to limit their comments to a maximum of 3 minutes. And I do not see anybody in this room willing to address us. Do we have anybody online?
No.
No.
And I say we'll move forward for general business. The Committee of the Whole will entertain requests from anyone present to modify the order of a business to be conducted. So I do believe that item 4C would be before item 4B.
Yes.
Yes. Anything
That would be
else? Without any objection?
No objection.
Thank you. And we're moving forward to item 4A for consideration of the minutes from the April 8, 2024 Committee of the Whole meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved. Seconded.
Thank you. Are there any changes to the minutes? I do not see anybody making any comments. Thank you. Clerk, please call the roll.
It's a voice vote. It's a voice vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. And we move forward to item 4C, I believe. And that would be our 41-176 exchange discussion.
Yeah, I'm going to give a very high level, introduction and then turn it over to Jeff Hansen. But this project has been talked about literally for decades. It is a project that is long overdue, the update to the intersection, and actually it would not be as far as long as it is, and that's, with the asterisk by it, but for not the Village of Lake Bluff pursuing federal dollars to actually give money to the state to complete the phase one. So that probably wouldn't even be where we are today, but for not the village's involvement in the project and trying to be an active cheerleader at all levels. And I think the good news is it's coming, and it's sooner rather than later, and it probably will be in the next 5 to 7 years. And Jeff got some new intel recently about the project, and I'll let him give everybody an overview. We wanted to have this conversation, one, because it's coming, and two, that nobody on the board today was around when we did the phase one, and just wanted to bring everybody up to speed and just let the community know what's going on with the project. Jeff?
Yeah, so this project started, George is here tonight. He started this probably 15 years ago, or more than that. The phase one ended about 9 years ago, right when I started. It was just finishing. And it's been sitting, waiting to get funded. Governor Pritzker announced that it would be funded, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago. He put it in the plan. And they started the next phase of engineering. Their big holdup is the storm pumps that empty the viaduct under Highway 41 are in horrible shape, and they have a plan to replace them. They took that part of the project out of the bigger interchange to try to do it first, but they can't find pumps made in America, and the funding requires them to use pumps made in America, so they've applied for a waiver from that, and they've been waiting for years. As of this morning, he said they thought they were getting close on that waiver. What that means, I'm not sure. I don't know how I think either you have it or you don't, so I don't know what the incremental step is there, but they're hoping to bid that part out later this year in the fall, just for the pump station rebuild, and that it's a storm sewer that goes down 176 to the Skokie, and they're hoping to build that next year in 2025.
Jeff, I have a question for you. So the problem with those pumps is they're made in Germany. So did we ever find another supplier, or is this going to be the same, but we're still waiting? There's no way around that, that asking for permission to buy them from Germany.
If they want to use the federal money, they have to either follow the Buy American Act or they have to get a waiver.
And
So
the
they've
web-
applied for this waiver. They said they cannot find a pump made in America that satisfies the requirements. I don't think it's just German. There's a Swedish company that makes the same pumps as well. But they have been on hold. They were trying to bid this 2.5 years ago. And they keep pulling it off their biddings because they can't get this waiver.
You have to wait.
And they can't get a hearing either. They've been trying to poke the feds to get it, the waiver hearing, and they said the procurement procedures were under review, so they denied them a hearing for that reason.
So it's a federal waiver.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah, I didn't know if there was a lobbyist opportunity there, but sounds expensive.
So then there's that small piece, that's about $5 million worth of the project, which I think is a $40 million project overall. The remaining $35 million project, they've paused the engineering because they need to get these pumps taken care of first. So in their ideal world, it would be bid the whole project in 26 or 27, for construction in probably 2027, 2028, somewhere around there. So we are a couple years off, but that's how the state works, and that's how projects like this get done. They take many years. So right now, he thought they had started the land acquisition process. If you look at the screen, it's kind of hard to see them, but the orange blots in there are all buildings that they need to acquire and demolish to make room for the project. That one that you see kind of in the middle is the old Knollwood Fire Department. That would become part of a detention pond. And then there's a couple in the village up along that new access road in the DeMarie industrial area where they need to build a new road. So I think what we'd start is just to go overall real big picture on the project. We refer to it as 41-176, but it actually extends all the way up 176 Keegan Road, and there's portions on Highway 43. But if we start with what's zoomed in here, the ramps that enter 41 have always been dangerous. There's no acceleration, deceleration lanes, so they would be adding ramps so you can properly get on and off the highway, which means closing access to the driveways along the east side. When you close all the access to the motel and the mobile home park and those other businesses, that necessitates a new road up along the railroad tracks to reestablish access to those places. So that's kind of this section of it here. 41 would be dropped about 6 feet to make more clearance under the bridge, and that sounds expensive in itself, but then you realize that Jawa has their main pipe going out west in that area. The Water Reclamation District has their main force main going out that, and we have a water main there too. So between the three of us, there's probably $4 million worth of utility relocates to accommodate that getting deeper. And then the signals will stay as they are. We see this is so old, it says development under construction where Target is, but nothing has really changed then. The bike path gets redone in some areas. A new bridge over 41 for the bike path is proposed. They haven't detailed what that is going to look like yet, but that gets replaced. And then as we head out west, access on 176, there's no more regular just left turns into businesses. The ones on the Lake Bluff side, the south side, that's all in Lake Bluff, those accesses all remain open. But if you're going to some of the buildings on the north side in the unincorporated area, you would have to make a U-turn in certain areas and go back and then access those driveways. So they've cut off some access there to make the traffic a little better. And then at 43, you can see there's some reconstruction of that intersection as well, including like a pedestrian island past the right turn lane because the crosswalk got too wide. So there is that improvement as well. Then it goes up. Obviously, this project is partially in the village and quite a bit also not in the village. So that's kind of the big overview. There's a sound wall proposed, I think, over by the motel. And then as that 41 gets deeper, the existing retaining wall that's there now gets taller. They're proposing kind of a, what do we call it, a slip line or like a foam liner wall, which is kind of just like kind of fake blocks. They put a pattern into them. So that is the big overview. They would like us to give them some input. If we look at what's on 176 especially, they show a lot of green medians, but that's not actually what's on their plans. They are proposing concrete in all those. And those are areas where the village could, we talked about maybe having it brick or Landscaping doesn't seem like it would really work well in most of those because they're so narrow, and our guys would have to maintain those, and there isn't really a safe spot to pull up a water truck or do something like that. But that is a question. They are removing, I think there's some trees kind of in front of Target and Heinens and in that area. So I don't know if there could be opportunity to put some parkway trees back in that area. There's the letter in your packet described 3 specific things they want us to agree to. One, I think is the no-brainer, is the emergency vehicle intervention at the stoplights. That seems like that needs to go back. 2 is maintenance on a sidewalk on that access road, which they pay to put the sidewalk in, but then we would have to maintain it. And then 3, they would like us to actually take over maintenance of that whole road up against the railroad tracks, which we've talked about that. We don't see a huge benefit to the village on its own taking that over. Is one item they would like us to respond to.
I have a question for you on that. So what would that mean for taking this over from a sidewalk and road standpoint? And that might also concern our chief of police on that conversation. What are the pros and cons to us taking this over?
Well, we'd have to plow it, and then, as the pavement ages, we'd have to replace and maintain it, just like any other street in Lake Bluff. It would be handed to us brand new. I didn't mention, we do have John and Kevin from Gewalt Hamilton here to answer any questions more specific to IDOT. Kevin used to work with IDOT. They are from Gewalt Hamilton. They do a lot of our engineering support for our roads and our water and a lot of miscellaneous things for us. So if we do have specific IDOT things that I can't answer, they are here to answer that as well.
You only named against our best interest. What is for us? I'm afraid to ask for that, but
I'll answer that if it's all right. So the village, that geographic area is within the village's comprehensive land use plan, an area the village wants to annex and control. Having control of the roadway does play into that to some degree, controlling curb cuts, et cetera. And the village has, we have water there. Any other utilities already there, Jeff?
With water and sewer there, yes.
That the village controls. So again, the idea is the village wants to be determine what type of projects get built in that area. And so control of the road is one piece of that puzzle. The other issue that we've talked about with IDOT is related to the village's deep tunnel project. And that one of the things we said is we know that this is a request of the state to the village to take over jurisdiction of this road once it's built. We've said conditionally that you do the big investment in the big tunnel project. That's been a conversation, a chip, if you will, in that conversation with them. That's they're asking something big of us, and we're asking it right back at them. So, but again, the land use plan does call for the village to control this area.
thank you. And so what I hear also in that conversation is the Jawa pipe is going through 41. This is 19 communities, so that would be a serious concern of ours as we move forward.
Yeah, and we're working with Jawa. They're trying to find a way to avoid the impact. They're working with IDOT and have their own engineers looking at that, the joint with the Water Reclamation District as well, because I know they've had success in the past, because IDOT doesn't really consider existing utilities in their design. They design what they want. So I know in one other case, Bill Susi over at Jawa just hired a consultant to redesign IDOT's project around their thing and presented it to IDOT, and they accepted it. This is a little trickier because they are trying to increase the clearance of the bridge, and a couple $1 million for a water main relocation doesn't really impact them as far as when they want to have their clearance of, I forget what the exact number is, but.
I mean, if we were to mess up, those are 20 communities that would be out of water, simply enough.
Yeah. So it would have to be relocated. We have Jawa, the district and the village have asked for a little help because there's not actually room in right-of-way to relocate. You have to maybe be on Knaus's property or somewhere else. There just isn't room to do that project without closing the street. So we're trying to work through that. And like I said, we have a couple of years to get through that, but IDOT works slowly, so
Thank you.
it's a process. And then I think, the other topic here is just to, I guess, find out if there is some enhancements that people would be interested in or thinking about that we should be talking to IDOT about. Like I said, we could go to brick in the meetings. We would have to pay for that upgrade. But if there are any aesthetic improvements that we're interested in, this is the time that we'd want to start communicating that to IDOT, so they could incorporate that into their plans, and we could figure out what the cost share would be.
On 176, the medians? That will be,
That's the main place where there are new medians, yeah. There are no, I don't think there's anything in 41 that we would have any say in, but 176 would be the spot where we would have.
Claire, can you zoom in and show the medians?
Jeff, where would those,
Just
is
in
it-
the, like right in front of Target, or if you have the other sheet blows up, 176.
is
Yeah.
this?
So we're a little far west right now, but it will come back.
I have the other,
in front of Target would be great.
So what would be our options literally to, I mean, you said bricks, medians, what else could we do to, basically, because that is actually a strategic item for us of beautification of a village, right?
And like I said, they show them green. We could ask for them to be landscaped in some kind of low plantings, but there is.
Jeff, can you clarify that they show them green on this drawing, but the actual construction drawings that we're reviewing with our consultant show them as what?
It's concrete.
It's concrete.
Just as a curb with concrete and flat, so,
And Jeff, there's, you can see the medians in between the road, but what's on the, I guess that's the north side, that's big green?
so that's what, I think you're looking at where Knollwood Fire is now. That's gonna be a stormwater pond,
Green and orange?
the green and orange blob.
No, I'm sorry, on the, towards the, so on the road,
Yeah.
there's green that runs parallel to it along the bottom.
Yeah, that is kind of their limits of disturbance, and what they'd have to restore is grass.
Oh, I
So
see.
all the existing trees or anything else in there would be taken out, because that's just their grading limits. All that green area.
Claire, would you mind dialing back out? I just want to make sure I understand. The yellow lines, that's the existing access to get to 41, right, those roads?
The road geometry doesn't change much. They're just showing the striping, I think, in the yellow lines when we zoom back in.
Okay.
The change is that once you try to turn onto the highway, you have a protected acceleration lane or a braking lane, so that you can actually get up to speed without having to, wait for a larger gap in traffic like we do now.
So that makes perfect sense. And then what they need to acquire to do that, can you be a little bit more clear on both heading north and south to get those acceleration lanes?
So the bridge is a little wider, because if you are turning southbound on 41, now there's an extra lane there, and it kind of tapers off, I think, kind of right by the bridge. But as you can accelerate and get up to speed and then merge properly at speed. So they actually have, I think, enough right-of-way on 41. The land acquisition they're trying to do is that Knollwood Fire area, which they have to put a stormwater pond in to accommodate their extra impervious surface. And then the 3 orange blobs going up the access road are buildings that are just in the way of that access road. So we have an easement up there for our sewer and water, but obviously they need a little more land than we do for our pipes to put in the road. And those are, I said, partial. One of them, I think, is just a part of a building. The other 2, I think, are freestanding at this point.
Despite, I mean, IDOT told Jeff that they had started the phase 2 of acquiring the property. My experience with IDOT is when that starts, they reach out to the municipality, the local municipality, and advise them of what's going on in case there's questions about it. And they usually outsource that activity. I've had no communication, and frankly, I've heard from a handful of property owners in this area, including some of those that are orange there. And to my knowledge, they have not been contacted yet. And that is usually not a quick turnaround. That can take years.
Yeah, one of the property owners contacted me a couple months ago to ask me if I knew anything, so they hadn't been talked to yet either.
So you're saying that the bridge would be widened by 10, 20 feet, 10 feet, 10, 15
I
feet?
don't think it's quite that far, 'cause I think that lane is kind of like going away at that point, but the bridge is a little wider than it is today.
So the bridge would have to be rebuilt or
Oh yeah, everything is gone. I mean, that's an old, I think that bridge is originally from the 20s. So the walls, everything gets completely taken out. I don't have their phasing plan to know exactly how long things are closed, but I imagine they do one side at a time, but it will be a very disruptive year or 2.
I was going to ask, so you would still be able to cross, but on one lane, and the whole direction of a project would be a couple years?
Yeah, it's 2 seasons is I think what they're expecting it to be. That's independent of the pump station. That pump station will be 1 year, and they're gonna be gone for a couple of years, and they're gonna come back for 2 more years.
Thank you.
And Drew, question for you, but where they're acquiring that fire station, is that where all that land is for sale, is around that?
Exactly.
That whole
Exactly.
block has for sale signs on it.
So, what, are they for sale to the public? I mean, what's going on with that land? What happens if that land is purchased and?
So there is a broker trying to collectively attract developers to that site. It is difficult to develop that site in the absence of certainty from IDOT.
Yeah.
That the fact is, like we said, they told Jeff this morning that, they're moving with phase 2. Well, that's maybe not accurate in that everything is moving along at this glacial pace. And so that makes it hard for developers to take a risk on a property because they don't want to be tied up carrying a property for extended periods of time when there's not certainty that, the redevelopment, and they don't necessarily want to live through the redevelopment of the highway either. Right. So there's a lot of risk with doing that project now. And developers I've spoken to about this site have said they're going to wait until, shovels turning in the ground before they start speculating on that site. But it is, to maybe answer your question, it is in unincorporated Lake County, not in the village, but that is a quadrant of the village that we would like to annex and control the development of. Some of the developers that have had very preliminary looks at the property has said that they would like to come into the village if they were part of a project there.
Makes sense.
Awesome. Thank you. Are there any more questions on the board to Jeff? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeff.
And that would be the end of item 4C, and we could move.
Before we leave that, I'm sorry. So of the questions, I don't know if there's any further questions about the village or any comments about that future access road. I don't know if there's any other questions about that. The village continuing to use that as a negotiation tactic. I assume people are comfortable with moving forward with that and understand that there would be a desire, maybe long-term, to control that, so that we're going to continue on that path. No change of course, correct?
Not totally tracking with what you're talking about.
So the access road that gets relocated along the railroad tracks.
2 orange blobs.
Yeah. So that's going to be the new service road. And so that's the question, one of the questions that the IDOT letter is trying to get the village's position on that. Will you or will you not take on that road in the future? And again, like what we started off earlier in the meeting saying is, right now we're telling them we would say conditionally yes to that. I didn't hear any people say no to. I just want to confirm that. It's a little hard to read the room when I'm not in the room. I apologize.
The point is that road, if IDOT wants us to take that road, and in exchange for that favor, they would be very receptive to basically invest heavily into the stormwater tunnel under the viaduct, basically.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't grasp all of it before, but what is that access road currently used as right now?
It's I would say mostly unimproved. It is a access road today, but it's there's a water, as Jeff said, there's a water main that the village controls through there. There's a sewer main through there, but it's a bit of chaos now. It's probably the best way to. It's like the back of house for a lot of those businesses through there that are. Yeah. So it's a little.
That's
it's
that
a
funky turnoff. When you're coming.
Yes.
It's not a road right now. It's not a public road. It's just an easement that we have utilities on, and we have some land there, but it is not open to the public to.
And would our plan be any different than what it is today, other than the continued upkeep and snow plowing of it? Would we change the use? Would we provide any other purpose for it?
No.
Okay, so the lowest cost maintenance we could possibly do.
Yeah, I mean, it would receive the same level of care of other village roads. It's just, it's any other, it's like, inheriting any other asset. You worry about the replacement cost someday and the maintenance thereof over time. But the idea of the village's land use plan, again, wanting to control that area, the village's complete streets, making sure that there's sidewalk there, it gets put in at the same time. All those things would be objectives of the village, just a matter of timing, right? It'd be, in an ideal world, we would annex all that property contemporaneously, but you see how things move, right? And the village would have that, there would be a large scale redevelopment of that area concurring, at the same time. But that doesn't appear like that will happen, practically speaking, so.
And if the village were to say, sorry, IDOT, we're not interested.
They would probably talk to the township, who would have even fewer reasons to accept it, and then the county, who would say, they would really push hard for the village to take jurisdiction control of this.
Okay. I'm comfortable.
Okay.
What about?
The last question that Jeff was getting to, the aesthetics of the islands, was there any appetite to bring back to you all, or maybe refer it to a subcommittee, either the ABR, who reviews a lot of public improvements, or the SEC, to talk about doing potential brick paver inserts? I'm not saying that's inexpensive. There would be a cost share involved, but it will never be any less expensive than doing it now in conjunction with this roadway project. You may have noticed something very similar if you take Half Day Road into Lincolnshire, or going the opposite way eastbound into Bannockburn. They have some brick corners on there. They have much wider medians there and have turf there, but like when you get into Lincolnshire really pushed IDOT to compress their footprint through the community. So they have I would call them like cobblestone pavers inserts in the middle of the median to break up visually the sea of concrete.
It would be interesting to know what are the costs to us and what are our options for, because I mean, again, this is one of these items on our strategic plan for beautifying the town. This is the main access point to our town. It would be nice to see how we can do better than what we have today, and at what cost, especially.
Okay, well, we can work with Gaywald Hamilton to bring those back.
Thank you. Are there any more? Are you guys comfortable with taking over that road eventually as a negotiation tactic?
Based on everything today, yes.
Yep. Shana?
Yep.
Good. Suzanne?
Yes, I think there's something that we need to understand, is that this is necessary because they're taking away the access off of 41. Is
Yes.
that into, so there has to be a road there, I guess.
Correct.
Yeah. So it seems to me, we share schools with the folks that are in that area. It's in our interest that the kids in our schools get to school. So for that additional reason, I think we should take control of that area so they can get to school.
One more related note. So the mobile home park, the Ravinia Mobile Home Community is what it's called now. They're in the top part of the screen, just south of the cul-de-sac area. That area and several other properties along here are on well. The Ravinia Mobile Home Community has recently submitted a letter to the village seeking access to village water. So that's just starting a conversation. Last week, they sent the letter. The village has extraterritorial customers for utilities, water and sewer. And typically when those, this is a preview of a conversation you'll be having soon, but when those happen, the village enters into pre-annexation agreements with property owners about what that would look like for those sites. What if and when they are ultimately annexed, but that gets them what they're looking for, and the village gets in an extra water customer, and there would be some other procedures required within that. I think we need to talk to Jawa, right, Jeff?
Yeah, we would need to sign off on a new extraterritorial.
Yeah.
consumer.
But that's just a preview of things to come. So
Awesome. Suzanne? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Fine.
So I believe that we have consensus on this side to move forward with that side road.
super. Okay.
Thank you.
Good deal. All right, we'll come back with some pricing on improving the concrete, assuming IDOT it doesn't stand strong on saying no, it has to be concrete. So we'll see.
Thank you. And next on our item is item 4B, that would be the Lake Bluff strategic planning efforts. Drew?
Thanks. So when we last left this topic, I was directed to go back and review the plan and size up how I viewed our collective achievement and um, status, and any maybe if there was any other priorities that were of concern that haven't been at least started. And I went through it, and it was a great exercise, and I appreciate the direction. um, because it was actually fun to go back and review how much work has been achieved over the last several years. And I think what's even more exciting is some of the more difficult topics, namely missing middle housing. And again, these are long-standing community issues to be addressed, or there's finally, I would call it, an in-depth conversation going on in the community about it, and that's something that appeared in the first strategic plan of the community. It's in this document, but there's actually progress being made, so that's great news. But it's not over, and I think we're probably some a ways off, and that's to me one of the big issues and goals in the community that needs time. And if you remember, when I started this conversation with you all, bringing this to you, it was the idea that it would make sense from staff's perspective that with the COVID pandemic, how that may or may not have impacted the collective achievement of the community and achieving this strategic plan. That coupled with that this plan had been refined enough that there were so many evergreen goals that it made it difficult to say whenever you would ever be done. Right? There's so many things that you can't say. You just can't scratch off the list saying, well, we're done with that. We're as transparent as community can be, or we are as aesthetically pleasing as a community can be. There's always different levels and different higher forms of achievement and all that always. So the idea was that I think there's still more work to be done with this plan. And I had a conversation with Trustee Ryder earlier today that, conceptually, both in the village's land use plan and the strategic plan, as a mature community, there really shouldn't be any large seismic shifts in direction of the community, so that the fact that this um, plan would have legs for extended period makes sense. So I'm happy to take any questions you have, or if there's comments about my review. There was one cell on the upper left-hand side, for whatever reason, and the printed version was yellow, and it was an incomplete sentence, but it had to do with the planned residential development code that was recently updated, did include certain amenities. One of those was best management practices as it relates to aesthetic and environmental um, vision for the community, and that's we're adopting those in our codes, and that was a good example of where the village is codifying its large-scale policy goals and community goals. And those are things, changes in the code that the village continuously does. So I thought that was a good example of that, another recent achievement of the village. So happy to take any questions.
I think when we look at the status of what is complete, what is good, what is complete, what is complete, and what is where there has been no progress, the progress is pretty staggering. A lot of it has been done, but I do understand that the pandemic stopped the progress on its track, and we need basically, it's not a bad decision to give that plan another 2 years for a better completion. Basically, we had to stall on our process. So I do agree with you, given the last COW we had, where the recommendation or the thought at that time was we need to give that plan another 2 years. And I think last time I was a little bit hesitating about that. This is either we continue that plan for 2 years, or we reframe the plan to actually give it another youth to it for maybe additional directions or revised directions. But I'm on the side today of, no, we need to finish what we completed for the few things, the last couple things that are staying there, to basically put an end cap to it. And some, as you say, will always be there with us going forward anyways. What do you guys think?
I don't have any additional comments.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I appreciate the diligence on this review and the notes. I mean, I think this was a really useful exercise.
Mm-hmm. It does represent Lake Bluff. It does represent what we are. Again, I will say that again, and I said that the last time, pretty much every discussion I have with Drew, that plan comes out to say, okay, online on page 17 on that side of a page, this is where it says this is what we should say. It does not get old. It is still there with us. I mean, the discussion about pavers on 176 is the item is beautification of a community. Okay, that's it, down next. The plan will leave. It is just a matter of, do we complete these items, or do we decide to engage to redo the plan, or to reconsider it, or to have the effort we had about 8 years ago, Drew, maybe? And so I think that I decently think, without hesitation, that we can give it another 2 years, before which we can invest the group to come and refresh it. Susan and Steve?
I was just looking to see if it's mentioned here, but one thing that I have to imagine we've gone above and beyond what we hoped for is the work on the Ebola land near Mariani's. That, it just transformed that area. Getting the wall of invasive species down. It seems like every month going by there, the transformation is just amazing. So it may be here somewhere, but I think 10 years ago, in 2011, we might never have envisioned the kind of effort and work that's been done there. Just once again, wanted to just point that out. It's one thing to look at the downtown and see the progress there. It's another just to appreciate the natural environment and the work that they've done there. It's been really remarkable.
Steve, you are a very strategic person. What do you think?
I think it was a good exercise for Drew to go through, right? I mean, part of it's just kind of a scorecard that he can look at and say, man, we accomplished a lot. It didn't highlight anything for me that, the columns in there, everything that is of high importance is at least rated as good, right? So what I would have jumped at was something that was rated as high importance but was only fair. Those would have been the things that were like, okay, is there something meaty for us to do?
Yeah.
And I don't know, Drew, was there anything, that was an aha for you, that popped, or is it not really?
No, listen, I mean, but for not the comprehensive land use plan update and the missing middle housing, that has been the most kind of like biggest hill to climb for the community. And I'm glad that that board is sitting around the table tonight authorized that work and getting that moving. That was probably the most difficult hill to climb. That is a high priority that is underway. If there's anything that stuck out in my mind that I was a little like, it's not a super high priority, but the idea of having a committee, the vision was to have, much like the village's branding committee and the farmers market committee, kind of an internal working committee of local professionals that deal in the world of communications and help the village do an audit of its communication program and look at all the channels and how we communicate, and if there's ways to do that better. Knock on wood, I'm grateful we do not get a lot of complaints about the village's communication program in general. I think for the staff we have and for the resources we do, I think we do a good job of sharing information in the community. Looking at the data between our website and the e-news, there's the growth. Our population slightly dipped from the last census, but the growth in our e-news readership and use of our website is continues to grow. Crazy enough, most residents still like getting that paper newsletter as their primary, communication channel. I think it'll be a healthy exercise to do that. Whatever people thought Facebook was is now come and gone, I think, to some degree. So whatever's next in that channel to turn on, I've always loved taking advantage of our residents' professional skill set and let them help guide us. And so that's the one that I'm looking forward to working on next. The most, Clara has started the audit internally, and so that's the next step. That's probably the biggest one that I was like, it'd have been nice to make a little more progress on that. But again, it's timing and goodness knows, I think our system, our communication, I don't think it's broken, and certainly got tested during COVID. But it's something that can always get better. So I'm just more one of those, I'm excited to do it and bring our residents under the tent to help us do better at it.
So what we're saying here is for the next 2 years, we are going to engage our community for better communication, and I'll leave it at that for any type of different type of media, and that's one thing. And for the things we're still working on, we're already engaged on that. That would be the missing middle as a generic term. And so that leaves us 2 years to actually engage on these two items or continue engaging those two items. And in 2 years from now, we are re-engaging on refreshing the strategic plan. Is this what we're talking about?
I certainly don't think we need to do it now. Whether we need to do it in 2 years or from now, I guess we could decide then.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a great point. And I mean, that's another, again, I think there's only so much civic capacity to be involved and engage in projects. And I think we'd probably be pushing it to start this intense resident engagement process while we're still trying to get through with the comprehensive land use plan and keep folks engaged on that. I think it's asking a lot, and that 24-month gets us through that, and we can bring it forward at that time to say, hey, I can do another update, say, here's where we are, we've made progress or we haven't, or here's something new that, frankly, to Regis's point, something has not presented itself that, oh, that's not on the list. You know, that the blueprint has been a good blueprint. I think it served the community well.
So we are
other than get through the next pandemic, that was not on there.
Yeah.
So we are deeply engaged in the comprehensive land use plan right now, and that's a big job, so we'll complete that. 2 years from now, we will regain some capacity to engage the community on different things. Is this a consensus on the board?
Sure.
Yeah.
So it is a consensus, thank you. So this is direction, Drew. So
Great. Yeah, I'll talk to, I'll find a way to memorialize that at a village board meeting level, so as to communicate to the community that this is the position and where the village leadership falls on this plan and moving forward, so we can do that properly. So look for that in a future board meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Drew.
Thank you so much. I mean, this is, I like that plan. I've typically not liked too many plans because I always find a strategic plan to be a little bit disengaged to what the real activity is in the organization, whatever the organization is. And in this case, I think that we are always engaged along the line of a plan. And so I do like this plan. I do not believe that when we get to refresh that plan will lose its essence. It will still be there at at a very high percentage to what the plan is today. So I'm actually very comfortable with that consensus. Okay.
Great. That's what I needed. Thank you.
Thank you. We completed that item 4B, and we're now at our adjournments. Could I please have a motion to adjourn?
So moved?
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And we're adjourned. Thank you.
Recording stopped.